As if you haven't had enough of us already.
This is exciting. So
here we are.
We can just sit in the middle. I'll sit under Ron. No, I'll sit here. You sit under yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, everyone. It's lunchtime, but you're still here, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, we appreciate it. I just realized the timing. I was like, we're hosting and emceeing and then have probably that toughest time slot.
Yeah, so grab a drink, grab a meal at the back, and Kyle, you want to start with doing an introduction?
Absolutely. So I'm Kyle Schember. I'm the CEO of a company in Santa Monica, California. It's a creative company called Subtractive, and also the co-founder of the NFT project that released July 21st last year, the Mutniks. And the Mutniks is a PFP project that's generative. We created the first ever do-over generator engine, as we thought one of the things that was missing was people getting a reveal and then not liking what they got. You're like, oh, you get on a list, you're excited, you get all this stuff, you have a reveal, and you're like, well, that's not exciting. So we developed a generator engine that allowed people to generate first. It would pull from the traits, put it together, and it wasn't even an image, it wasn't on the blockchain, had not been minted, and it was only minted until you made the choice and said, this is the one I like. And the first dogs that flew to space paved the way for human spaceflight. And Dr. Sian Proctor, as an astronaut, you know, we were working on this ahead of time. I was friends with Sian before she became an astronaut. And, you know, we were very passionate about dogs. And that was the reason I'm telling this whole story is because that was the genesis of sort of our entry into NFTs and then hence NFTs for good. And
yeah, and so I'm Dr. Sian Proctor. I was the mission pilot for Inspiration 4, the first all-civilian mission to orbit last year in September. Anybody know Inspiration 4 with SpaceX? So we launched in September of last year, and as a result, I became the first black female pilot of a spacecraft. But And it just hit me. I'm also the first black person to paint in space. And so last year, I won my seat on Inspiration 4 as an artist and a poet. And I luckily already knew Kyle. And the mission, our mission, Inspiration 4, had a for good mission tied to it, and that was to raise $200 million for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And I wanted to be able to contribute in my own way to this big endeavor of raising $200 million. And that's when Kyle and I got together and said, well, how about we do NFTs for good for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital? And so I was all behind that. And so then Kyle came up with some really awesome creative ways for us to be able to do this.
well, and this all kind of put together like a month before launch. So time was not on our side, and we were literally starting from ground zero, like just nothing. And however, we'd been in Clubhouse, we'd spent the time in the community introducing ourselves, listening and connecting with people, which was key. And I thought, well, this is a crazy ask, but let's just go ask artists if they're willing to donate a one of one. And everyone responded. And if you were here earlier this morning, I said, like, you know, it took everything to align. It was a balance. It wasn't just us. It wasn't just the artist. It was, are people willing to do this? Are people going to participate? And it was the artists, the creators, the collectors, and even all the entities that then amplified that message. All of those things. I think everybody in this room really wants to, like, boots on the ground, do something with NFTs for good. That's an easy intention. But it does require, and some other people asked just a little bit ago, like, how do you get it to that level? Well, it takes all of those things. You have to sort of look at the megaphone that you have to speak through. St. Jude has a huge megaphone. SpaceX has a huge megaphone. Jared Isaacman has a huge megaphone. So we could check that off the list. We knew we could amplify it and get it out there. And then the connection to artists, that art that people want. And then Sian is an artist. Like, she was in astronaut training and had to create a piece, you know, and also get other people to create a piece. And so there were some challenges around it. It wasn't just like, oh, great idea, bing, oh, there we go. It was a grind for 30 days, and it was in a compressed time frame.
Yeah, and also thinking about how do you create a platform around that in such a confined time, and to get everybody to understand what it was that we were doing last year. And so there was a couple of things that I was able to do. One was I was able to, because we were the first all-civilian mission to orbit. It wasn't going to the International Space Station. Instead, we were orbiting for 3 days around the Earth in a SpaceX capsule. So we had different constraints than you would if you were a NASA astronaut. And as a result, we were able to bring iPhones with us. And if you can bring iPhones with you, you can bring digital technology with you. And so I said to Kyle, how about the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the Muttnicks to space. Who here's a dog owner? Proud dog owner, or who loves dogs, I should say. Right? And now, how many of you knew that dogs paved the way for humans to go to space? Yeah, not a lot of us know that. And so I've always been passionate about dogs, been dog owner many times. And when Kyle came to me with the Cosmic Paws Agency and the Muttnicks, I knew that that was what I wanted to take to space with me, because just to think about the legacy. I wouldn't be going to space if it wasn't for these brave dogs that went way, way, way back. And so I brought the Muttnicks to space, and then we came up with the idea of doing the auction for 3 days while I was in orbit to raise money for St. Jude.
Yeah, and it was sort of a jumping off point for the rest of the artists. I mean, we didn't give any direction other than, obviously space is a good theme for an NFT auction that's centered around an actual launch. So when the mission started, and it could move, I mean, in aerospace things change and they're not ready in a scrub, whatever. But we ended up staying pretty much on time, and so we started the NFT auction on launch, and then the idea was to end it at splashdown. And another challenge that we had was, okay, what's the platform for this? Like Origin Protocol, which some of you may know, they had gotten our attention through the Blau drop and others that we were like, wow, this is a team that really has it together. And they stepped up, and it's funny, I met them at the LA Art Show, and I just approached them. Never met them in my life, and I said, this is going to sound crazy, but would you come with us to support with your platform and do this for St. Jude during a SpaceX launch and do it for free? Because that's a lot of work. And they were like, yes, we will. And it was that yes that sort of turned it over, where I was like, okay, then this can actually happen. So we built the team, and it was a team that pulled it together.
Absolutely. And what's great about it is 100% of the sales from that auction went to St. Jude. And in the end, my crew and our mission, not only did we exceed the $200 million, but we raised $250 million for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital last year, over the course of the year. And so one of the things that was awesome was going to space. Who here wants to go to space? Yeah. And so, and who here wants to go to space as an artist or a poet, right? And did anybody know about the Inspiration 4 mission before it launched by watching the Super Bowl? Okay, so you could win a seat to space in 2 ways. Jeremy, did you put in for the Inspiration 4? Oh, did anybody in here? So what's interesting is that I actually won my seat through a contest, and the platform was Twitter. So if you're not on Twitter, you may want to be, they're popping off seats to space on Twitter. I mean, it's amazing. NFTs, a friend of mine, they're announcing the winner tonight for sending somebody to space through NFTs. So I won my contest last year, and I put in as an artist and a poet. And then one of the things that was really important to me was, how do I bring art along? How do I bring poetry along? I've been a geoscience professor for over 20 years, so I made sure that my school students were able to submit artwork and poetry to go with me to space. But what I'm most proud of are probably these 2 pieces above me. This one on the left is called Seeker. And Seeker is what I call adventure art that goes on an adventure. And what I mean by that is a physical drawn piece that I created before I knew I was going to space. I created it about a month beforehand. And the reason why I created Seeker was because Richard Garriott, who is the president of the Explorers Club and is an astronaut, was going down the Mariana Trench to Challenger Deep, the deepest part of our planet. And I just happened to be born on Guam, which sits on the Mariana Trench. And so I made that piece for him to physically take down to the bottom of our planet. And then by the time he came back up to the surface and got it back to me, I had won Inspiration 4. And I knew that that was going to be a very special piece of art. But before I took it to space with my crew, I sent it to the Titanic. Yes, down to the Titanic with another astronaut. So this piece of art traveled to the bottom of the Mariana Trench in the Pacific, then it traveled to the Titanic in the Atlantic, and then it came to me and went to orbit for 3 days. And when I came home, I donated to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, where it sold at auction for $100,000. My first piece of art to sell. But what was great about this and working with Kyle and Subtractive is they said, well, before we hand this over, let's scan it and make it into an NFT. And so it became my first Genesis NFT for myself that is available now. And then the second piece up here is the piece that I created while I was in space. So I was able to, with the help of SpaceX, create a watercolor palette. That one is actually me in space. You can see how my clothes are like puffed up on me because it's funny, when you're in space, everything floats, including your clothes. So your t-shirt, if it's a little bit baggy or anything, everything floats and you just kind of live inside your shirt and your clothing. And they helped me put together a palette so that I'd be able to paint in space. And that was the final result of what came from that. And so painting in space is awesome. I highly recommend it for anybody who would like to go and do that.
Well, and that's just it. NFTs, in the time that we started our projects to today, there are NFTs that have actually given other people access to space. I would have not have thought that would happen that quickly. But in addition to that as well, too, I mean, just what we've learned today in this room is how many people are dedicated to making positive impact with NFTs. And it's like, put your hands up, because it's like, it is really like, this is a great community. It's fun, it's inclusive. We've all seen like all types of artists for this role of lifesavers, right? But it's that what you give is what you get. And a lot of people miss that. And that's what I was saying this morning too, like, I appreciate everybody that showed up here because, you know, if you're a creator or even if you're a collector, it's like, and you have success, well then, you know, why are you keeping that all for yourself? Not pointing anybody out in particular, but it's a thought for yourself. And then what can you do to do that? And as we had the success with the first NFT auction centered around Inspiration 4, it's kind of like what's next. And I think if we can go to the next slide, this thing's been a little buggy. If you could advance the slide, there we go. What we decided, and you know, as I was talking about challenges before, working with large organizations, you know, there's an education around that, or even working, we were trying to work with a very small dog organization, and it was really hard because they don't understand it. It's, you know, it's the devil's money, it's crypto, it's like, you know, there was all these conversations to be had, and it just wasn't panning out. But to find a partner willing and able and excited like St. Jude, after we did the auction, we were like, you know, everybody wanted to do that. They're like, this was great, how does this happen, how can we help? And because some people didn't even know about the auction until well after it was over. So what we came up with was for the Melanee community to go procure stjude.eth. And we came here at this conference to announce that as we set it up, and you know, we will be further announcing, you know, how that can contribute. But it's a very easy way for people to simply just transfer it to that wallet. Like if you know how to send crypto from one place to another, then you can help support St. Jude via NFTs. And so that's what we're here talking about today. And
yeah, and you think about, when you're talking about how you partner with a charitable organization, I think, a big part of that is how do you get them, empower them? How do you empower them to have ownership in the NFT space? And for a lot of times you come in as a company and you want to try and help manage them and provide this kind of stuff. But what I love about working with Kyle is we're thinking, what's that next step? How do we make sure that they're secure in a way that is independent of us? And by being able to get stjude.eth for them, then all we have to do is say to artists or people who are creating new drops that are going to be significant, hey, why don't you donate one of those to the St. Jude wallet? And so that they can have it part of their collection. And then they can be able to leverage that however they want for the organization and being able to, advance cancer research to end childhood cancer. And so those are some of the things in the conversations we've been having.
How many people are familiar with St. Jude and the work that they do? Okay, for those that didn't raise your hand, I learned this too over the past few years. It was started in the 60s by actor Danny Thomas, which probably, doesn't resonate with a lot of people in the room, but this was his give back. What you give is what you get. He recognized the success that he had had through a Hollywood acting career and built this hospital off of that, and anyone that goes does not pay a dime. So the people that are accepted into their program are able to focus on getting well rather than financial stress. And that's something that NFTs can do, right? So here we are in the future now, 2022, and it just aligns so beautifully because the kids that go through the treatment, the families, they don't pay for lodging, they don't pay for food, they don't pay a single medical bill, and they're able to just get well, and they've upped the survivor rate to 80% from 20%.
Yeah, from 20%. And what's interesting too, and how that ties into my mission, where I went to space with Inspiration 4. And so the 4 really stands for that there's 4 seats in the Dragon capsule, the SpaceX Dragon capsule. And Jared Isaacman is my commander. He is the one who came up with the Inspiration 4 theme, and he came up with 4 pillars. Leadership pillar was number 1, and he took the leadership pillar. So he was leading the way by example. The second spot was the hope pillar. And what he did was he said to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, I want to fly the first childhood cancer survivor to space. And they found Haley Arsenault, who at 10 years old was diagnosed with cancer in her leg, and she went to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital where she survived at 10 her cancer treatment, but they had to put a prosthesis in her leg. And so her dream as a result of going through that with St. Jude was to eventually go and work at St. Jude. And she did that. She became a physician assistant at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And last year, she became the youngest female to fly to orbit, youngest American female to fly to orbit, the first female to fly with a prosthesis in her leg, the first childhood cancer survivor to fly to space as a result of our mission.
As we bring it to a close, we have to monitor ourselves. We don't want to go over and then screw up the rest of the afternoon. But how many people here came to this panel in this room today to join in making a positive impact? Show of hands. All right, and the next show of hands. How many people are on Twitter? Show of hands, same people? Okay, get out your phone. Let's do a tweet right now out of this room. You can compose any tweet you want. But I think what we need to do, and this is the power that we have of the people, just the few people that are here, you watch next year when we do the NFT for Good stage again, likely a bigger room and filled, right? And I think that all of us connected here, we've connected with all the speakers. It's not what we do and not what we say here right now. It's what we do after this. So you can follow at Dr. Sian Proctor, DR. It's up there.
DR Sian Proctor.
Yep. And then I'm at Subtractive. Tag us and just say anything. Like, this was awesome. Today was great. South Hall, Edison, loved Keith Haring. I mean, because like there's been some epic stuff in here today.
And more people need to know that, because one of the things that I found as somebody connected with the space community, and Kyle and I were talking about this today, is that someone wrote, you know, you're awesome about what you do with space, but I'm done with all this NFT stuff like that you're doing, so I'm going to stop following you. Okay, bye.
Bye.
But a lot of that misinformation, particularly in the space community, about why NFTs are for good and the things that we can do as a community and why we can support each other. And so I think that what you're saying about, you know, share this out, that NFTs for good is a real thing, making real impact and making a difference.
Well, let's stay connected to share in ideas on how we can educate, right? Because everyone sitting here understands it. You get it. We get it. And it takes time for it. People were mad at the internet when it showed up. And people were mad about TV when it took over radio. It's just the natural progression of things. But stand strong. And we've had to do the same thing because we've taken a lot of heat. And we will continue to do so because we're not going anywhere. You know, and thank you all very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, any quick questions? Well, I would say the biggest thing you probably do, connect with us because we have case studies. We actually did it. Use us. Go, they did this. Yeah. And you should too. It will grow in time, and others will, and you know, we're around, so it's like we want to see this, we've seen over, I don't know how many organizations that people are raising money for just on this stage alone today. But again, us staying connected, not working in a vacuum or a silo, us helping you and being reciprocal, that is the Web3 way. Letting it out.
Well, and I think, you know, we were lucky that St. Jude, you know, they were very open to...
See Mark.
Oh, there.
Mark's right there.
Right there, from St. Jude Children's Research.
It's funny because, you know, he's been with the organization a long time, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, but he was like, you know, I've been banging this drum over here and waving this flag, and then you just come in and like kick the door down, like, there you go. And I was like, but we work together now. We work together.
And I think it did help that we were tagged with doing the largest fundraiser in St. Jude history. And they, you know, so they were like, what do you want from us, you know? And we did it successfully. So I think that was one of the things where they were very helpful in coming on board with that.
We got to moderate ourselves now and cut it.
I know, we have to moderate ourselves. Oh my God, pull us off.
Yeah.
We're going to keep going. Thank you.
And we're around after for questions or whatever.
Okay, let's get organized for our next speaker.